What's good, everybody? I'm Keandre, this is HoopIntellect, and welcome back to the channel. And as you can see, we've got our usual preseason big board / watch list in this one. Now, I'm still not tied to this board at all. It's going to change a lot and change very quickly, but I do think we'll be talking about a lot of these names throughout the year. And this is probably the best job that I've done identifying and scouting all of these guys going into the season, which is part of the reason that there will be a part 2 of this video. There's just too many names that belong in this conversation that will get NBA opportunities, whether it is next year or sometime down the line. And what you're seeing right now is just a rough list of some of those names, so expect those and some others in a deeper video a few days after this one drops, and I might even turn that video and upload it onto podcast platforms also. But with all that being said, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you are new to the channel, and we'll go ahead and jump right into it. Now, I've kept Bronny James off this board once again just until we see him return to action, but the good thing is he will at some point. He'd be somewhere in my top 30 to 40 with a much higher ceiling than that, all things considered, but I just want to see where he's at before throwing any expectations on him just yet. And coming in at number 60, we've got Tennessee's Dalton Knecht. He started his career at the JUCO level, really took off in his second year at Northern Colorado, and now he looks poised to break out at Tennessee, already catching a lot more eyes in the exhibition against Michigan State. I really like his game as a 6'6" guard who can really shoot and create shots. He's got bounce, and if he brings it defensively, I think he'll be well in this mix, even being 23 on draft night. After a long admissions delay due to an English equivalency exam, Zvonimir Ivicic is at least on campus for Kentucky, but he can't participate in any games until the NCAA approves of him. And hopefully he gets the opportunity to play as fast as possible after all this trouble for both his sake and because Kentucky could really use his size and skill set at 7'2" to start the year. So we'll see what happens with Big Z. Trenton Flowers has already had an interesting start to his career, leaving Louisville to be a point guard in the NBL, and then finding out for himself that that's maybe not where he's at his best, but I do think there's an interesting player there. He's a good athlete, a potentially ahead of schedule shooter, he's an active defender, so even in some limited opportunity at times for the 36ers, he's figuring some things out every game. He had 18 points in the fourth quarter against Illawarra, so he's still one to keep an eye on. London Johnson has looked the part of a draftable second-round guard in these early competitions for the Ignite. He's looked a little more in control than he was last season, and though I have some questions about his shot and just generally in where he finds a niche at the next level, I like what he's done in making plays for others especially, and I think he'll be in this conversation all year.
He throws it down.
Reese Beekman has been in draft conversations the last couple years, but I think this will be his full breakout. He's a 6'3" guard out of Virginia who's a high-level defender. He's tough, he can put pressure on the defense and make a play, and I think if we see him fully take the reins this year, improving as a shooter and just in his overall volume as an offensive player, I can see him surprising some people, even myself, in how high he goes. Arizona's Kylan Boswell should be in for a good sophomore year. I really like watching him defend at the point of attack. He can shoot the three and make plays for others, so it'll be interesting to watch him this year and how he gels with the likes of Caleb Love and Jaden Bradley in that backcourt. I don't 100% trust that UCLA is going to be the best spot to showcase his game, but from what I've seen from Jan Vide both in the U19s this summer and with Real Madrid's U18s, it keeps him on my board. He's a talented creator at 6'5", and though I want to see how he adjusts off ball and as a three-point shooter among some other things, talent-wise I wouldn't at all be surprised if he's in the first round mix in the future. Babacar Sane is in his second year with the Ignite, and he's already made a solid impression. He's a 6'6" physical forward / wing who has intriguing skills as a ball handler, especially in an open floor with versatility on both ends. And though he's still a little out of control at times and maybe hasn't shown the elite skill just yet, I like him enough to put him in this group. I think he's an interesting bet. I think Georgia Tech's Miles Kelly is in for a big junior season and one that may firmly put him on NBA draft radars. He's an elite three-point shooter off the catch at 41% last season and also shot nearly 90% from the free throw line. I think he can be used off movement even more, and he's also capable of attacking closeouts and shifted defenses. I definitely want to see his overall offensive progression and his defense this year, but he belongs here and should be one of the better players in the ACC. Nikola Jurisic has gotten off to a pretty good start to the year, especially as a shooter, shooting 46% from 3 and averaging about 11 3-3, and filling in nicely to a Nikola Topic, who we'll talk a lot about later. And I think if he can keep this up throughout the year, a 6'8" wing who shoots it, can put it on the floor and make a play, and still is just 19 years old, is more than worthy of consideration. DaRon Holmes has been on draft radar since setting A10 records as a freshman at Dayton. He was on my list of draftable bigs last year, and I think that'll remain the case. He's a big-time play finisher, an impressive shot blocker, and took steps forward as a scorer on the interior. It'll be interesting to see if he shoots a 3-ball this year and how much he's progressed physically, primarily in the lower body, but I don't see too many reasons for him not to be on here, and I think he'll have learned a lot from going through the draft process this spring. I'd be surprised if Dillon Jones doesn't have a massive season at Weber State. He's a big guard who averaged nearly 17, 11, and 4 last season and showed he could hang with other future pros in the combine earlier this spring. He's already got a ton to his game. You just want to see how he looks physically first and then a little progression as a shooter, but he's another guy that may not have like the cookie cutter NBA role, but he's high feeling, productive, and someone that I would bet on. Berke Buyukengel is a big piece of UCLA's international-laden freshman class, but he's also one of 2 guys who is still awaiting NCAA clearance to play this season, so that'll be an important story to watch. But in terms of his game, he's a 6'9" forward who can shoot it, attack a closeout, and make a play for others from there. There's some questions still in his athleticism and individual defense, but he's shown enough internationally and in the Turkish league to feel good about what he brings to the table. Kevin McCullough is one of those players that's kind of easy to write off as an older returner, but I know what he does as one of, if not the best wing defender in college basketball, and if he can finally figure out the 3-ball this year, it'll probably be enough to get him drafted, and doing it on a national championship contending Kansas team won't hurt either. One of the leaders of what should be a big-time Marquette team and a prospect we talked about at times last year is Oso Ighodaro. Oso is a 6'11" big who's consistently shown off his defensive versatility, operated as a hub, as a playmaker, and finished plays near the bucket. And if he can continue to put all the pieces together and maybe space out his game some, I think he's a future NBA contributor, and he comes in as one of my higher-ranked upperclassmen. Dennis Evans is one of the more interesting long-term prospects in this class to me. He's kind of a natural late bloomer, and I think he might be a 2-year guy, which is just fine, but his instincts as a rim protector and ability to finish plays near the bucket are that of an NBA big. He showed all of that in Louisville's recent exhibition. I want to see how he handles ACC competition and where he is at as a mover and in his conditioning, but he's one to certainly be intrigued by. Michigan State freshman Cohen Carr is an unbelievable athlete, and the conversation around him as a player always has to start and end there. But beyond that, I do think he's capable of finding an eventual niche at the NBA level with his defensive acumen, especially help side at the rim, his slashing ability, and what I think is a decent overall shooting outlook. I'm not 100% sure he'll be a one and done, but this year or next, he's certainly a potential dynamic NBA contributor as a sort of do-it-all wing/forward. Arkansas's Trevin Brazile is back in action after missing most of last season with a torn ACL. I still want to see him fully return and kind of dispel a few tweener concerns on both ends, but he's got the makings of a potential first-round pick as a bouncy forward that can space the floor and operate as a secondary rim protector. There still isn't an official timetable for Kentucky freshman Aaron Bradshaw's return from a foot injury, but he'll be on the board to start the year, and I'm hoping he'll be good to go whenever that is, because the best version of him is a super valuable player as a 7'1" big with good length who protects the rim, can finish and roll, and may be able to stretch the floor in time. But you couple the foot injury with some other existing questions about him, and it gets tougher to bank on him as high as maybe some others have him right now. Terry Darling has been dealing with an ankle injury that I'm assuming originally stems from the Basketball Without Borders camp earlier this year, but it kept him out of the exhibitions between Perth and the Ignite and the Intercontinental Cup. But should he return for the start of the season as previously reported, a 6'6" wing who is a talented shot maker and has upside as a passer and also great defensive tools will make noise, and I'm curious to see how he fits in this group with the Ron Hollands and Modest Mozellises and company. Rob Dillingham makes an appearance on the preseason board, and while there are some reasons to be hesitant, a player with his level of creativity and scoring ability, along with the progress he's made physically in such a short time, is worth betting on. He's still fairly small, and I'm curious of what a lot of the pieces of his game look like at the college level, but again, someone as dynamic and talented as he is worth betting on. I've been able to watch more of Maryland's Deshaun Harris-Smith the last month or so, and I think he belongs here with the other potential one-and-done guards. He's physical, he's well-rounded, super competitive, and doesn't have too many weaknesses on either side of the ball. I question his creation maybe a little more than those that are the highest on him, but a utility combo guard who really defends and does whatever is asked of him might end up being hard to pass up. Oklahoma's Milos Uzin is one of the premier sophomore breakout candidates in my book. He played early and often for the Sooners as a freshman and was at times their best player, and I've really grown to like his upside as a well-rounded offensive guard at 6'4". He's crafty, he can shoot it, he's a versatile passer with good precision. I want to see what it looks like and how he handles being the lead guy on the scouting report and where he takes the 3-ball in his defense, but there's a lot to like with him as a player. Colorado's Tristan da Silva is someone I really wanted to watch more of heading into this board, and I do think he belongs in this mix as an older, experienced forward who can make plays in a variety of ways. He's not a great athlete, but he can really shoot it. He can score both inside and out and is very crafty in a lot of different spots. He's maybe not your traditional NBA guy in terms of archetype, but he makes it happen, and that sort of player is what I'm trying to value a little more, even with some of the obvious matchup and role concerns that could be there. Tyler Smith is also part of this very talented group on the G League Ignite. He's a 6'10 lefty floor spacer who has a little face-up game, and to me there is also some upside defensively. Now that end of the floor along with some passing will dictate a lot for him, especially coming from OTE, but he's proven himself through these first couple competitions as a guy that has first round upside. There's a decent amount of projection forward here, but Virginia's Ryan Dunn has the tools and opportunity to break out in his sophomore season. Though it was in lower minutes, he was a difference maker as a freshman, particularly with his motor and on the defensive end, averaging over 3 blocks per 40 minutes, and should he continue to stretch his game out and be more consistent offensively, he'll almost certainly be a draftable prospect. UCLA's Adem Bona is an easy big to put on the board. He's high motor, a great athlete, can cover ground defensively and finish plays above the rim. He was Pac-12 Freshman of the Year, someone that could have been drafted last season, and though there are a number of areas he can still improve, and hopefully he stays healthy throughout this season, there's a clear path to an NBA role for him, and I think a lot of teams are going to be intrigued by him. I've gone back and watched a lot of Wooga Poplar from last season, and I'm convinced he takes a pretty significant jump. He'd already caught a lot of eyes playing a big role for a Final Four Miami team, and I think that'll grow. He's a 6'5 guard or wing who's a big time athlete. He really improved as a shooter and takes a lot of pride defensively, and though he'll look to take on a bigger role offensively and show more to his game there, I think the scaled down version of what he does is already one that a lot of teams will be interested in. Ohio State freshman Scotty Middleton will have a good chance of going one and done for his skill set as a two-way wing who can really shoot the three and has a growing pull-up game. He was a key piece for Sunrise throughout his high school career, and I think he'll show his NBA appeal in whatever role he has for the Buckeyes as a freshman. I haven't too much changed my opinion on Iowa State's Omaha Billieu over the last couple months. He's got eventual lottery level upside as a 6'10 forward who has shown he can bring energy, defend in numerous spots, and has flashed a number of things offensively. Now the U19s and maybe some of the Cyclones' foreign competition give more pause as to how ready he is right now, but I'm excited to watch him, and he should be one of the more interesting prospects this program has had. And here's a look back at the second half of the board. Terrence Arsenault was a key piece as a freshman to a Houston team that was one of the best in the country all season long. As a sophomore, he'll have a lot more responsibility, particularly on the offensive end, and if he can show progression there, just attacking closeouts and driving, matched with his ability to catch and shoot from three and defend at a high level, he'll have a great chance of being the 4th first-round pick from Houston in the last 4 drafts. Creighton's Trey Alexander should be in for a big junior season after emerging as a draftable talent a year ago. He's got an intriguing combo of shooting, scoring off the bounce, and tough point of attack defense. And with the exits of Ryan Nembhard and Arthur Kaluma, he'll have more responsibility as a ball handler and playmaker than before, so we'll see how he handles that and potentially boost his profile as a player. Cody Williams should be one of the more intriguing freshmen in college basketball this year playing for Colorado. He's a 6'8 wing with a knack for slashing to the rim, making plays for others and defending in a few spots. I think the progress that he's made physically and as a shooter will have a lot to do with where he lands in this draft or if he declares, but he's got a lot of the pieces of a high impact wing, and though they are individuals, his brother is J-Dub of the Oklahoma City Thunder, so you've got to feel pretty good about his future progression and work ethic just based off of that. I think Kobe Johnson is primed to establish himself as a real draft prospect this season, and for now we'll put him well in the first round. At 6'6", he's going to be one of the best defenders in this class. He's been a solid team playmaker and steadily progressed on the offensive end every year. If he can continue to make improvements as a shooter and overall scorer, the younger brother of Hawks forward Jalen Johnson is the exact type of player that goes in the 20s every year, cracks the rotation fairly early. Florida State's Baba Miller entered last season as a potential lottery pick for many, including myself, and though it was clear once he stepped on the floor he wasn't quite ready to be that guy, there's still a ton of intrigue in the 6'11" wing out of Spain. There's not a lot of guys his age who have his combination of size, fluidity, and defensive versatility, and if he can continue to find a niche offensively, he'll be tough to pass up towards the first round of the draft.
Late in the shot clock,
Bobby Klintman had really started to turn it on in his last couple NBL games, going for a combined 34 points, 17 rebounds, and 4 blocks with 6 made threes across 2 games before facing some NBA competition in the preseason. He struggled a bit against the Wizards and Raptors, and I think his lack of explosion and his youth kind of shined on those stages, but if he can continue knocking down shots, making plays off the live dribble, and just staying solid defensively, he'll be tough to turn down as a potential NBA contributor. I'm definitely excited to see Judah Mensah's sophomore season at Syracuse. He's a dynamic guard with a knack for getting to the paint. He gets to the pull-up midi, he makes plays for others, and that will remain the case this season. And the biggest keys for him will be extending his range to 3, both off the catch and off the dribble, and then how he looks playing man defense. And if he makes real progress in those areas, I think the sky is the limit for him as a player.
Here's Mintz along the baseline, hands down.
It's tough for me not to be fairly high on Elliot Cadeau, even as a 6-footish guard who has been a questionable outside shooter to this point. I just think his skill level, his feel as a passer, and ability to get to all spots on the floor while also competing defensively make him someone worth betting on. Now the outside shot will be key for his stock, and he may even come off the bench to start the year, but I think he'll quickly show his importance to UNC's success as well as his potential as a one and done.
Cadeau all the way to the hoop.
You guys know who Kyle Filipowski is and what he brings to the table, given we've all watched him quite a bit at Duke over the last year. And I've said this a few times before, but I think he's either going to need to shoot the ball at a very high clip, show that he can play the 5, or defend a bit better in space to actually reach the top 10 in lotto heights that some have him in. But nonetheless, a 7-footer who can put it on the floor, score inside and out, and make a play is still a first-round talent to me at this point. Tijan Salan has continued to be a contributor for Cholet to start their season, and while it hasn't been spectacular numbers, a 6'10" wing who just turned 18 in August and has his athletic profile, defensive upside, and the growing 3-point ability and confidence make him someone that should stick in first round convos and potentially even be one of the biggest risers over the year. Now, I didn't think I'd be talking about this, but Indiana freshman Mackenzie Mbaka will not face suspension after being arrested on a criminal trespass charge for allegedly being rude and refusing to leave a Taco Bell after being denied service around 2 a.m. when they closed at 3 a.m. Now, this is such a random story and we only know what has been reported to this point, but being he's still going to play and this isn't a real serious issue at all, he stays fairly high on the board as a forward with a ton of upside as a shooter and shot creator, but has questions in his feel and ability to play more as a 3, especially on the defensive end. As you can probably tell by this point, this could be another big time class for French basketball, and Melvin Aginsa is a part of that. He's been one of my favorites to watch over the summer and into his season with St. Quentin. He's a good athlete, he makes an impact defensively, especially in help, and his run of improved shooting and shot creation make him someone that's got to be in first round convos should it continue to hold.
A little different style of a broadcast.
I've been a little lower on Zachary Rizachet than some who have had him around the top 5 in the last 18 months, but he started to really impress me lately. He's a 6'8" wing out of France who is a fluid mover with real upside as a defender and team playmaker, and has turned some of the scoring flashes into something more consistent lately. That combination of tools at his age is always going to be very intriguing, and I wouldn't be surprised if he lands significantly higher than this in the next several months if he continues on the path that he's on. After being a consensus one and done lotto pick last year, Kel'el Ware gets a fresh start in Indiana and will look to put it all together. A 7-footer who can move as well as he can, shoot the 3-ball, and protect the rim gets the benefit of the doubt for me, even with some of the concerns that have been there. Now, I'd say maybe I'm still a little more into the idea of Ware than what he's earned to this point, but I think a new situation, the added strength, and learning from year one will put him in position to succeed. Marco Jackson is a 6'3" guard that'll be an integral piece to the Kansas puzzle this season, but he's also a potential one-and-done lotto pick. He's explosive with the ball in his hands, he's a capable passer, he can get to the pull-up, and he's grown into an impact defender at the point of attack. The shot and whether or not he can be relied on to run offenses at the NBA level will be under the microscope, but he's a big-time talent that I could easily see flying into the top 10 best case. Mara is the other UCLA international freshman awaiting clearance from the NCAA before he can participate in games. Now there's an LA Times article that just dropped recently on all the details that are currently out there, but essentially his old club had sued him for an exit fee this summer. They claim he's had an agent since he was 15, among some other things. So that's all a huge deal regarding whether or not he plays this year, because on court, Mara is one of the most talented young passers at the 5 I've ever seen. He can score inside, defend on the interior. There's a lot to like there. Still tons of questions with him defensively, specifically in the pick and roll and also spacing his game out and just fitting in the modern NBA. But he's a big time talent that's got to be in or around the lottery entering the year to me. DJ Wagner is the next guy looking to join the long list of successful Kentucky guards this year. He's been a tougher player to rank coming into the season the more I've thought about it, because though he could very well be the best scorer and one of the best creators in this class, he'll need to make real progress as a shooter and passer to fully warrant belonging in these top 10 convos. But he's super talented, and that's what the season is for, and I'm interested to see how he and this Kentucky roster put it all together.
And a kick out.
Florida's Riley Kugel is an easy and obvious year 2 breakout candidate given his performance throughout last season, but especially down the stretch. He's a 6'5" guard that can get buckets from many parts of the floor, especially in the pick and roll, and he's shown the ability to defend a few positions and did that fairly well last year. I'm curious to see how this Florida group meshes this year. They've got a lot of talent but a lot of new pieces, and I want to see how Kugel handles the added responsibility and decision making, but I do like him as a late lotto guy to start, and I think he'll be one of the best players in the SEC. Donovan Clingan will look to build on his outstanding per-minute production as a freshman that helped UConn win the national title last year, and in the process he'll look to get himself drafted in the top half of the first round. At 7'2", Clingan's ability to protect the rim, finish plays, and just move at that size gives him a path to being a high-level NBA contributor. He's currently working back from a foot injury, but it seems he should be good to go towards the start of the season, and he'll hold the key to a lot in their attempt to go back-to-back. Nikola Topic has been one of the biggest early risers for me coming into the season, and I think it's for good reason. He's been on a tear playing for Mega Me, showing off his craftiness, pick and roll prowess, and the ability to make plays as a 6'5" guard. And to this point, I'm thinking he's a solid lottery bet. Maybe we'll need to see him be this good from 3 a little longer to nail that home, but he's potentially the youngest player in this class and someone I think competes in the first round of the draft regardless. To me, Providence freshman Garway Dual has some of the highest upside in this entire class. He burst on the scene late in his high school career, flew up the rankings, and really made an impression at the Nike Hoop Summit. He's a terrific defensive playmaker, he's a unique mover and creator offensively, and though I still want to see it at this level first, he's easily got the tools to be an eventual lottery pick. Another member of the G League Ignite, Ethan Almanza, is a 6'10" forward or center who has a knack for making a positive impact on the games he's in. He's a versatile defender who makes plays for others and has some hub potential offensively, and is also highly decorated in international competition. His biggest questions come from his offensive fit and upside if he's not showing progress as a shooter, but I love where he's taken his game since being with OTE the last couple years, and I think he'll have a lot of fans from people who follow the draft and within NBA organizations this year. The case for Baylor's Jacoby Walter as a lottery prospect is an easy one. He's one of the best defenders at the point of attack and makes plays off ball. He knocks down spot-ups and has the ability to attack a closeout and get to his pull-up. I think the caliber of shooter he shows himself to be, along with where the creation and decision making is at this level, will move the needle most, but it's pretty cut and dry for me that there is a future NBA contributor here with Jacoby. Tyrese Proctor comes in as my top returner in the class and should end up as one of the better guard prospects. He had a really slow start to his college career last season, but I liked what he did down the stretch, and his ability to create for himself and others, command a pick and roll, and his underrated point of attack upside defensively, all at 6'5", makes him a potential top 10 prospect for me. I think he puts it together and could lead Duke back to where they want to be.
Oh, nobody there. Now a backdoor cut. Proctor to the hoop with a right hand.
I find Justin Edwards to be one of the most interesting potential lottery prospects and someone that is already a little polarizing depending on who you talk to, but at 6'8", he's shown he can handle it some, finish at the bucket, he's got upside as a pull-up shooter and has flashes defensively, and I think that combination of traits belongs in these convos. Now, the shooting questions, some of the ease or lack thereof as a self-creator along with being a very old freshman makes it a little more questionable, but right now he's a solid pick in this range. UConn's Stephon Castle is a big versatile guard / wing with the upside to compete at the top of the draft. At 6'6", he's a naturally talented playmaker and pick and roll operator. He's been able to get to his spots as a scorer on the perimeter and at the basket as a crafty and unorthodox mover. And while I think some of the concerns about his separation and as a shooter are valid, I just think there's enough there to have him top 5-ish to start. I'll be curious to see what role they have him play and how he makes a consistent impact in this offense, but he's the player I think dictates whether or not the Huskies are a contender again. Modest Buzelis' upside as a high-level connector piece that can shoot, pass, and dribble at 6'8" plus makes him someone I still think belongs in the top 5 conversation heading into the year. I thought he was solid in the exhibitions against Perth in September, and then he didn't play in the Intercontinental Cup due to an ankle injury, but in those games, while there's still some room for improvement, I thought how he played defensively and just how he's progressed physically were positives. I'm pretty comfortable in his floor as a prospect and will be about as curious to watch his early games in the G as anyone else we've talked about. Isaiah Collier is pretty strongly in my top 5 entering the season, and I've mentioned this before, but a big part of that is because I think he's one of the few guys that could handle some primary playmaking responsibilities in this class. If you're unfamiliar with him, he was the consensus #1 player in his high school class as a physical downhill guard with great upside as a passer, and though we'll be waiting to see the progress he's made as a shooter and overall scorer among other things, I've seen enough from him over the years in this summer to feel confident with him here. Now, after spending the last couple years with Overtime Elite, Alex Sarr made the move out to the NBL and the Perth Wildcats specifically, and so far his play has gotten him legitimate top 5 attention, and for me, I think he's one of the premier options for the #1 pick coming into the season. He's a 7-foot big who can play multiple coverages in the pick and roll. He covers ground with the best of them, and then offensively he can finish plays above the rim. He's a growing playmaker and dribble handoff handler, and has been shooting the ball at a terrific clip to start the year. He's got a chance to be in the vein of that modern big that's had a lot of success in recent years, and though he's still got a lot of work to do, guys like Evan Mobley, Chet Holmgren, Jaren Jackson all give him kind of a path to follow, and we'll see if he proves to be that caliber of prospect. And then coming in at #1 to start the year, we've got Ron Holland of the G League Ignite. Holland is a 6'6", 6'7" athletic wing or forward who has long hung his hat on bringing energy and being a versatile defender. But the thing that's moved him up more seriously into contention for the #1 pick for me is the steps forward he's taken as a shooter, ball handler, and overall in his skill development. I was a bit more skeptical based on what he showed at Duncanville and in his time playing for Drive Nation in the EYBL, but he's shown enough to convince me that he belongs here. Now, he's still got work to do like the rest of this class, and I'd still say it's fairly open, but he's firmly put himself near or at the top of this draft. And here's a look back at the entire preseason top 60 board. Again, I'd pay less attention to the ordering right now, but I am confident in a large number of these players being in this convo all year. I appreciate y'all for watching this video. If you did enjoy, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you are new to the channel, and leave a comment down below if somebody you think is going to be a big riser in this class, or maybe somebody that you think is going to be in lottery conversations that isn't right now. Just a quick reminder, that video that is covering sort of the best of the rest that weren't included in this top 60 will be dropping soon after this one, so stay tuned for that. And then also follow me on Twitter if you want a little more short form content on NBA draft stuff, other NBA stuff that happens throughout the season, and kind of everything in between. So go over there if you aren't already. That stuff is always in the description. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. I appreciate y'all for watching this video once again. As always, I'm Keandre, this is HoopIntellect. Until next time, I'm out.